When I was about 4 years old, my family moved to a small town in upstate New York called Schuylerville, New York. We drove all night long in a huge pink Plymouth, a vehicle from which, in time of emergency, smaller vehicles could easily be launched. I was young, but my reading skills had already developed to such an extent that as we drove into town, by dawn's first dim pink light, I was able to read the sign that said, "Welcome to Schuylerville, population 954. And to give you a sense of what sort of town this is, that afternoon, the old white-haired mayor himself drove out to the sign with a bucket o' paint and in a Norman Rockwell gesture, because we had moved in, amended the sign to say, "And some Jews." I was raised by academic intellectuals, and I was raised to believe that academic intellectualism was inherently superior to physical prowess of any kind. But in Schuylerville, kids played Little League, so I signed up for Little League. I was not good at Little League. My ability to catch and bat was severely impeded by a tendency to close my eyes and hide my face when a ball came near me. I was assigned to a position called deep left field. It was a position created specifically for me, 40, 50 yards beyond the actual left fielder, where there was no chance I would ever be involved in any of the actual game. I could stand out in the deep weeds and stare at the clouds and imagine the animals. One afternoon, my father came to see me play on a Saturday, and he sat in the bleachers with the other parents, and as so many parents are, he felt compelled to shout encouragement to his son in his endeavors. But he was a teacher of theater and English at a liberal arts college nearby. He was the man from whom I had learned my non-athleticism. He had never internalized phrases like "get in the game" or "keep your eye on the ball." So as I stood out in the deep weeds, swatting at gnats and praying that no ball should ever come to me, I heard my father's voice drifting out over the green as he shouted, "Dylan, leap into the present moment!" And I knew at once that this would be one more reason for my teammates to brutalize and ridicule me. This was not the only place that I was ridiculed and brutalized. I was beaten up regularly on my way home from school. I remember once sitting with my father and saying, "I don't understand why they hate me so much." And he said, "Dylan, they don't hate you. They envy you, your intelligence and your wit and your ability to make your teachers laugh and your good grades and your nonviolent relationship with your parents." He did not explain to me that it wouldn't help to explain this to the bullies. It was more useful than my mother's advice. She said, "Dylan, not everybody you meet in life is going to like you. The sooner you can accept that, the sooner you can stop trying to win my affection." At one point, I sat down with my father on the steps in front of our house, and I said, "Dad, I hate Little League. I hate it. I hate everything about it. I hate the practices, and I hate the riding to and from the park on my bike with the glove, and I hate the games, and I hate the catching and the throwing, and I hate the batting, and the glove makes my hand all sweaty." And he said, "Well, Dylan, I went into the doctor. I said, 'It hurts when I do this.' He said, 'Then don't do this.'" I stared at my father at 11 years old, not yet familiar with rhetorical allegory. And he said, "Dylan, it's an old joke. The point is, you can stop if you want." That thought broke on me like that first burst of cool rain at the end of a long, hot, muggy spell. The idea that I could stop doing that which caused me discomfort and unhappiness. It was my first taste of self-determination. I could quit doing that which caused me displeasure. Oh, I quit Little League. I took up the life of the academic and the intellectual, and I read a lot, and I pretended that I genuinely believed that academic intellectualism was inherently superior to physical prowess of any kind. My father was a fairly good man. He tried hard to teach me things that would be useful. He taught me that it was okay to cry, that it was okay to express my own feelings. But because of who he was, it never occurred to him to teach me that sometimes I would have to be strong, or even that I could. Forgive me, when I perform, I sweat like Rush Limbaugh coming off OxyContin. I have this fear that someone's going to write a review of me saying, see Mr. Brody, he's a brilliant storyteller, but see him in a well-ventilated space. Okay, so there was a delay in the publication of my first book, and I was becoming depressed. I can tell when I'm becoming depressed because I wake up in the morning and I go to shave and I see myself in the mirror and my first thought is, oh great, this guy again. I can tell at that point that my mood is about to spiral like Larry Flint at the Guggenheim. So I got a wow out of Andy Sell. So I didn't realize how bad the depression was getting until my wife said, you have to talk to somebody. You're absorbing all the light in the apartment. So I went to the Yellow Pages and I found a therapist and I made an appointment. But it is the nature of the human experience and the self-sustaining power of depression that I wrote down the time of the appointment and the address, but I didn't write down the office number or the guy's name. So on the appointed day, at the appointed time, I wound up wandering around a psychiatric building looking for help. You'd think they'd be on the lookout for that kind of thing. I still have no idea who I had an appointment with, but I found somebody in the building with a free hour. Well, not free, you know. Not actually an hour. You know how it works. So, an available session, and I went in. And he turned out to be a pretty good match for me. He does the right stuff. He mirrors my physical position, so I think he understands me. And he asks me how things make me feel. You know, all the therapist stuff. And a few weeks into this, I went to him and I said, hey, I walked past a martial arts studio. I'm thinking about signing up. And he said, well, you know, Dylan, 30 to 40 minutes of aerobic activity 3 or 4 times a week can cure 80% of depression cases. He said it very quietly like that, as though he was afraid the other therapists might hear him beat him up in the parking lot, giving away trade secrets. And then I had to explain to him, well, yeah, but non-athletic and academic intellectuals, Little League, brutalized and ridiculed, hand all sweaty, clouds and gnats. And he said, Dylan, are you a child in Schuylerville or an adult in Los Angeles? And that seemed like a direct challenge. So I went to JK Taekwondo in Burbank and I signed up for a course of study. And it was very difficult at first. And by at first, I mean 12 minutes in, I had to go throw up. But I very quickly became enamored of the study of the art of my master, of the things that I was learning, the things that I was learning to do, the things that I was seeing other people do. It was all just extraordinary. And after a few months Um, I was working on a falling motion, a jumping, diving shoulder roll that I was supposed to learn. And I landed on my head, and I crinked up my neck very badly. And I went into the studio the next day to find my master alone in his office. And I said, "Sir, I fell on my head and crinked up my neck." And he said, "Oh." And I waited, because I had seen Karate Kid. Surely he could slap his hands together, generate magical ki energy, and fix me. But he did not, because apparently my master is not an Asian stereotype. And I said, Sabanim. Sabanim is Korean. It means teacher and master, but there's a lot in it. Father, surrogate, and role model. There's a lot in the word Sabanim. I said, "Sabanim, what should I do?" And he said, "Oh, really bad." And I said, "Yes, sir, it's very bad." And he said, "Oh, a lifetime of training." And I said, a lifetime of training, sir?" And he said, "Oh, maybe 10 or 15 years to training." And I said, "And then I won't crink up my neck anymore when I fall on my head?" And he said, "No. Then you won't fall on your head." And I said, "Sir, it's an Asian doctor joke." And he said, "Huh?" Because when he's really baffled, he turns into Scooby-Doo. And I said, I went into my doctor, I said, "It hurts when I do this." He said, "Then don't do this." And Master Lim lit up, thrilled to be so thoroughly understood despite the language barrier. And he said, "Yes! That's a good doctor. You keep that doctor." And I said, "Sir, a lot of what we do in class hurts. Shouldn't I just quit altogether?" And he looked so sad, as though he had disappointed me terribly as a master and I had disappointed him terribly as a student. And he said, "No, quit. Martial artists never quit." And I said, "But it hurts. Shouldn't I just stop?" And he said, "No. You stop when hurts, never learn to a different way. You fall on your head to hurt, you say, okay, I don't do anymore. Then someday you're running, you trip, you fall on your head, you hurt. No, you learn a different way. I show to you." He took me out on the mat, we took off our shoes, we bowed to each other. We bowed to the flags. He said, "You show to me." Falling motion. I said, "You know the one, sir, the jumping, diving, falling one." He said, "I know. You show to me." And I didn't want to, but I was learning to be a martial artist. I knew what was expected of me, and I said, "Yes, sir." And I did the jumping, diving shoulder. I tried to dive low to minimize the impact. And I landed on my head, and I crinked up my neck. And Master Lim laughed the laugh of a man who sees the obvious solution to a simple problem. He said, "Oh, Darren, you have to jump higher." And I said, "Higher, sir, I'm jumping low, and it hurts." He said, "Yeah. No, I explain to you now. More high means to more time. You can't do many things at once, only one thing. You can't jumping thinking now I am soon falling and then falling, now I am soon to land. No, only one thing. Now I am jumping, now I am falling. Now, I could see him struggling for the vocabulary that he did not yet have in a second language. I was pretty sure I knew what he was trying to say, and I said, "Sir, are you telling me I need to leap into the present moment?" And he beamed at me like that first burst of sunlight that comes through the clouds at the end of a dark, rainy spell. And he said, "Yes, Darren! This is the thing all great athletes know. You learn this, you could be martial artists." And then again, as though he was rolling them around in his mouth for future use, he tried out the words for himself. He said, "Yes, Darren, leap into the present moment." I thank you for that, but I'm running short on time, so I don't have time to waste on laughter and applause.